We all want things, but what you gonna do for it? How you gonna move for it? What you gonna be? And do you believe you can do anything? But what you gonna do for it? How you gonna move for it? What you gonna be?
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me tonight for a comedy journey into the wild world of aircraft launch and recovery specialists. Now, you might be wondering, what's so funny about catapults and arresting gear? Well, buckle up, because we're about to find out. As an aircraft launch and recovery specialist, my job is to make sure those fighter jets take off and land safely on an aircraft carrier. Easy, right? Well, not quite. Let's just say that my adventures on the flight deck have provided me with enough material to take off in the comedy world. Oh, and speaking of takeoffs, here's my manager to remind me just how rough my landings can be. While working as an aircraft launch and recovery specialist, this is what my manager said about my work. Rusty, you're the only aircraft launch and recovery specialist I know who needs a GPS to find the sky. The other day, my boss had this to say about my work. I heard they're considering replacing the catapult with a slingshot because of your accuracy. I couldn't believe it when my executive remarked this. Even the seagulls on the flight deck can land better than you. So, on a Friday, my team came up with this gem about my work. I've seen smoother takeoffs at a kindergarten playdate. My team's feedback on my work was quite the surprise. Your idea of launching aircraft is more like a game of catch the jet. It's like my superintendent woke up and decided to roast my work with this comment. You're like the bungee cord of aircraft launch, lots of excitement followed by a sudden drop. I had to hold back laughter when my administrator commented like this. I've seen more graceful landings from a falling leaf. You won't believe what my team said about my work recently. You make our aircraft carrier look like a floating amusement park with all those unexpected twists and turns. Let me share what my director said about my work on Tuesday. I asked for precision, not a comedy of errors on the flight deck. One day, this is what my supervisor said about my work. Even the fighter pilots are asking for motion sickness bags because of your launches. In the realm of unbelievable feedback, my administrator said this about my work. I thought we hired an aircraft launch and recovery specialist, not a circus performer. Last week, my controller threw this curved ball. You're like a human pinball machine on the flight deck, bouncing aircraft in every direction. Another day I went to work and my manager said, I've seen better coordination from a toddler on a tricycle. Just this Wednesday my colleagues said this about me. You're the reason the Navy has a new slogan, join the Navy and experience rusty landings. Ever had your work summed up by your chief in a single sentence? Mine did. And it was, even the flight deck crew has started placing bets on where your next crash will be. Guess what my manager said during our meeting? I heard the Navy is considering using your launches as a training exercise how not to do it. Here's a good one. My head of department's take on my work was, your work is like a roller coaster ride, thrilling for a few seconds, then everyone's screaming to get off. My boss's perspective on my work took an unexpected turn when he said, I thought we were in the business of launching planes, not starting an air show for seagulls. You won't believe what my team said about my work recently. You're like a one-man air show, and trust me, nobody's applauding. Just when I thought I'd heard it all, my manager said this about my work. Even the AFOs are avoiding our aircraft carrier because of your launches. So, there I was on a coffee break when one of my colleagues said to me, I've heard that your aircraft launches are now a featured attraction on YouTube, under the category Epic Fails. You won't believe the hilarious thing my manager said. Even the flying fish off the bow of the carrier have smoother takeoffs than your launches. I had to hold back laughter when my team commented on my work like this. I asked for precision, not a game of whack-a-jet on the flight deck. I had to hold back laughter when my administrator commented like this. I heard you've become the go-to person for creating turbulence during family vacations. My team's feedback on my work was quite the surprise. You're like a human slingshot, but instead of sending aircraft into the sky, you send them into chaos. Let me share what my director said about my work on Tuesday. I've seen more graceful landings from a parachute made of lead. While working some extra hours, my team said this. Your work is so bad that even the life rafts are considering resigning in protest. I've heard some things in my time, But what my superiors said about my work was truly memorable. I thought we hired an aircraft launch and recovery specialist, not a carnival ride operator. So, my manager dropped this gem about my work recently. Even the radar is confused by your launches. It keeps detecting UFOs instead of aircraft. It's like my superintendent woke up and decided to roast my work with this comment. You make the aircraft carrier look like a theme park with all those wild rides. My boss's perspective on my work took an unexpected turn when he said, I heard the Seagulls now have their own VIP section on the flight deck to watch your launches. Just this Wednesday, my colleagues said this about me. You're like a human slinky, but instead of stairs, you're tumbling aircraft. Here's a good one. My head of department's take on my work was, I've seen more coordinated landings from a paper airplane. Here's a good one. My team's take on my work was, your work is like a comedy show, and the aircraft are your unwilling audience. You'll get a kick out of what my manager said. Even the dolphins are placing bets on whether your launches will end in a splash or a crash. Ever had your work summed up by your chief in a single sentence? Mine did. And it was, I thought we were in the business of launching planes, not auditioning for a disaster movie. So, on a Friday, my team came up with this gem about my work. You're like a one-man air show, and trust me, nobody's buying tickets. One of my colleagues dropped this gem on Monday. Even the Seagulls are forming a union to protest your launches. One day, this is what my supervisor said about my work. I've heard the aliens have started avoiding Earth because they heard about your launches. Another day, I went to work and my manager said, you're like a human wrecking ball on the flight deck. We should call you Captain Chaos. Last week, my controller threw this curved ball. I heard the Navy is considering a new slogan, brace yourselves, it's a rusty landing. We went for a team building and my team leader dropped this gem. Even the flight attendants on commercial airlines have better takeoff and landing records than you. So, my team leader came up with this singer about my work. Your work is so legendary that they're making a video game called Rusty's Flight Follies. Guess what my manager said during our meeting? I thought you were supposed to launch aircraft, not test their ejection seats. Guess what my team said about my work during one of our meetings? I heard that the Navy is considering replacing you with a giant slingshot. My employer's feedback was quite the surprise when he said, you make the aircraft look like they're auditioning for America's Got Talent. The other day, my boss had this to say about my work. Even the birds on the flight deck have started wearing helmets because of your launches. Just when I thought I'd heard it all, my team said this about my work. I asked for smooth takeoffs and landings, not a thrill ride for the pilots. Picture this. My team's comment on my work went something like this. You're like a human trampoline, but instead of bouncing, the planes just crash. I couldn't believe it when my executive remarked this. I've seen more precision in a toddler's finger painting. Let me share what my team had to say about my work just yesterday. I thought you were trained to handle aircraft, not turn them into abstract art. Picture this. My executive's comment on my work went something like this. Even the runway is telling your aircraft, buckle up, it's going to be a bumpy launch. In the realm of unbelievable feedback, my administrator said this about my work. Your work is so bad that even the Seagulls are packing their bags and looking for new careers. One day, this is what my supervisor said about my work. I heard the Navy is considering installing airbags on the flight deck just for your launches. Let me share what my director said about my work on Tuesday. You're like a human catapult, but instead of launching planes, you launch chaos. It's like my superintendent woke up and decided to roast my work with this comment. I thought we hired an aircraft launch and recovery specialist, not a demolition expert. I had to hold back laughter when my team commented on my work like this. Even the flight deck crew is practicing yoga to stay calm during your launches. While working some extra hours, my team said this. I've seen better takeoffs and landings in a video game with a broken controller. You won't believe what my team said about my work recently. Your work is like a bad action movie, lots of explosions, but no plot. Let me share what my team had to say about my work just yesterday. Even the aliens are watching your launches for some intergalactic entertainment. Well, folks, that wraps up our comedy show for tonight. I hope you enjoyed taking off into the world of aircraft launches and rough landings with me. Remember, in the high-stakes world of aviation, sometimes laughter is the only thing that can keep us grounded. Being an aircraft launch and recovery specialist may not be a smooth ride, but at least we can find humor in the turbulence. Before we go, let's hear one last singer from my manager. I leave you with my manager's last words. Rusty, you may not have mastered launching planes, but you've certainly mastered launching jokes. Thank you for being here and have a good day. See you on the next one.
And we all got dreams, we all want things. But what you gonna do for it? How you gonna move for it? What you gonna be? And do you believe you can do anything?
Hey, I may be the worst at my job, but at least I am entertaining. Leave a comment down below and let me know what your manager is saying about your work. And if you didn't enjoy this show, well, I promise I'll try even harder to disappoint you next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time, stay employed and keep smiling.